Warning, this podcast may be disturbing to some listeners. Due to the graphic nature, listener discretion is advised. Welcome from wherever you are. This is the Demon Inside podcast. I am your host, John Venom. If you would like to review another episode of the Demon Inside, you can go to Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and any podcast platform. And please, don't forget to subscribe and rate us with 5 stars. A new episode will come out once a week. We will be right back after a word from our sponsors. And welcome back to the Demon Inside. Hello, my Demon Insiders, and welcome back to the Demon Inside. I'm your host, John Venom, and today we are going to be doing the Demon Inside, Paul Michael Stefani. Now, Paul Michael Stefani was also known as the Weeping Voice Killer. That's because when he called 911, he was crying for forgiveness over the phone as he was describing the crime scenes. But before we get into that, let me give you some background. So, Paul was born on September 8th, 1944. He was the second of 10 children. They were raised in Austin, Minnesota, and his mother was supposedly a devout Catholic woman. Now, here's my problem with this devout Catholic woman, because this is 1944, so 3 years when Paul was 3. This was 1947. Back then, the Catholic religion frowned upon divorces. So how much of a devout Catholic was she really? She got remarried to a man when Paul was 3. And his stepfather was also a devout Catholic. During this time, Paul was raised to fear sin. He learned at a young age that confession was the only way to enter heaven, which is part of the Catholic religion. Now, at the same time, his stepfather, if the children got in his way, this is what Stefani says, the stepfather would smack them on the head and sometimes send them flying down the stairs. So I'm sure this had a lasting effect on Paul. I believe what Paul got out of it was a tremendous amount of guilt and confusion. Basically, I think he got, don't get caught doing something bad or you would pay the consequences. But he also believed he needed to be forgiven, whether anybody knew it or not, because he knew that God knew that he needed to be forgiven. So basically, don't get caught by your parents, but make sure you ask God for forgiveness. So after he graduated high school, Stefani moved to St. Paul in the mid-1960s and began work as a shipping clerk and a janitor. He was briefly married and even had a daughter. Stefani was once convicted of aggravated assault and had a history of mental illness, and eventually he divorced his wife and left his child behind with her. So in 1977, he was fired from his job at the factory. During that time, he had started dating a woman from a different country who was here, and he was happy with her until her parents called and told her that she needed to come back home for an arranged marriage. Well, this hurt Paul to the point where he felt betrayed. So, around comes New Year's Eve of 1981. actually 1982. It's December of 31st, 1981. And Paul is alone, and he's driving around in the rain, and he sees a woman in a red dress. So he offers her a ride because it was cold and raining, and she accepted it.
She got in my car, and I gave her my jacket until I said, the heat will be on in a minute. I had to clean some of the ice off the windshield.
He said, all of a sudden, inside of him, he heard a voice saying, you have to kill her.
Oh, how many times I just sat in dark alleys or go back to the street and just sit there and just talk. I mean, what is going on here? There's somebody telling me, Paul, it's time to kill. Paul, it's time to kill.
So the woman that he picked up in the red dress, he was driving her around, and the voice told him to kill her. He takes her to where he used to work, which the factory, and he takes her behind the building. He beats her with a crowbar over her head.
Did you hit her one time, 2 times?
Yeah, must have been like 30 times, but I mean, a good 20 times I think I know.
Were you swinging it this way, or did you poke her with it? Or
No, I don't think I poked her. I remember just hitting her mainly on the forehead, on the cheek, and the jaw, the mouth, and the top of the head. And I think it was only about 10 times, because then I know you must really be hurting in that, the steel bar like that. I was even hurt. When I went back to the car, there's going like this. I mean, and that's what made me want to go to the phone. I mean, I really wanted to help her. My mind started clearing up. What are you doing? You had a chance to make another friend. I kept yelling at myself. Dude, you like to make friends.
He was thinking that she was suffering, and he needed to get her help. So he calls 911, and I'm going to play that for you right now.
Yes, please, this is an emergency. Please send a squad to Pierce Butler Road, Molenberg Manufacturing Company, machine shop. Please, there's an ambulance too. There's a girl hurt there.
Can you tell me what happened to her?
Just hurry, she's laying on the ground in the back by the railroad tracks, by the edge here. Hurry.
What's the address?
I don't know.
Who are you?
So, with a second victim,
And then that's when she started telling me where she was from, in Wisconsin and all that. And I said, well, hey, why don't you, I'm not even thinking about her there right now. I said, hey, no, why don't you let me show you downtown? I said, yeah, I want to show you something. There's really a nice view over here. I mean, you see the nice river. I think I mentioned somebody you can probably have something to tell your parents about them. Dress, and I remember opening up her bra and everything. I'm just feeling stuff. And they just started stabbing her.
he stabbed her. This victim, he stabbed her over 60 times. 48 hours later, he calls 911. I'm going to play that for you now.
Oh, you find me? I just stabbed somebody with an ice pick. I can't stop myself. I keep killing somebody.
Hello? Are you there?
48 hours later, he calls 911. I'm going to play that for you now.
I couldn't help it. Don't know why I had to stab her. I am so upset about it. I keep getting drunk every night. I can't believe it's just a big dream. I can't think of being locked up. If I get locked up, I'll kill myself. I'd rather kill myself than get locked up. I'll try not to kill anybody else.
After that, Paul, he kills a third by drowning. Now, this one is different. This one that he drowns her in the tub, and he doesn't call 911 this time. But on the fourth one, he calls 911 again, and he says, well, take a listen to it.
By your emergency.
Please don't talk, just listen. I'm sorry I killed that girl. I stabbed her 40 times. Kimberly Compton was the first one over at St. Paul. I don't know what's the matter with me. I'm sick. I'm going to kill myself, I think.
Where are you?
I'm just going to... If somebody dies with a red shirt on, it's me. I killed both of them. I'm sorry. I'll never make it to heaven.
So for his last victim, which was actually the survivor, he picks up this young woman. Now, all these women didn't have anything in common. They didn't look the same. They didn't dress the same. The only one common factor that they had was each one of them had on something red. One of the victims, and he actually says on one of the phone calls, if somebody in red dies tonight, or if you find somebody in red dead tomorrow, it's because I killed them. There was something about the color red, and it got me thinking, because if you guys remember the nurse, Elizabeth Wettlaufer, she used to say that she had this thing inside her that she called the red surge. Now, this guy is looking at red and killing people and saying that inside of him, somebody is telling him that he needs to kill. Kind of sounds familiar. I mean, to me, it does. So, Stefani gets a girl who is a prostitute, and her name is Denise Williams. And Denise is 18 years old, and she's a survivor. This girl, she said she felt something that wasn't right with him. Now, we've heard that before as well with some of the victims that have survived, that they say there's something wrong with this guy. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel normal. We will be right back after a word from our sponsor. Hey guys, now it's time for the Uber shout out of the week. And today, oh my God, it was so funny. So I get a call to pick up somebody from Six Flags, which here in Texas, or in San Antonio, is called Fiesta, Texas. And if you guys will remember, I had picked up a guy from Kia, or from Mazda a while back, and his name was Paul. And so I had promised Paul I wasn't going to do Uber during my trips anymore. So I get a call from Six Flags, Fiesta, Texas. I go pick up this person, and it's Kalia. Kalia is a salesperson here at World Car Kia. I was freaking out. And me, you know, I don't like to cancel on rides, especially when they're waiting on me. So I picked her up. I was hoping she wasn't going to notice me, but I was in uniform. She saw my patch. She says, "Hey, I know Nighthawk Security." And the minute that I turned around, she saw me and she's like, "What are you doing here?" So now I really truly can't do Uber during the nighttime. She didn't tell on me, but I probably have to wait a little bit. I told her about Paul, and Kalia told me, well, you know what? If you give me a shout out and say to come buy a car from me here at World Car Kia on 35 North, between Pat Booker and, or what is it? Yeah, Pat Booker and O'Connor Road, she'll treat you guys right. So, Kalia, this is your shout out. She's a salesperson at Kia. Come on down here if you want a car, and hopefully I don't get fired from this stupid job, because I really do need it. All right, guys, back to the show. And welcome back to The Demon Inside. So she started actually feeling very uncomfortable and looking around for a weapon that she could use. And she found a bottle, a glass bottle, that was on the floor of his car. So he took her to a hotel. They had sex. He pays her. He starts driving her back to the city. And this is when she starts feeling uncomfortable. He keeps telling her they're going towards the city, but she realizes they're going through normal streets. They're not going through the highway. They're taking like a long way around. And then she realizes they're not going to the city. So he ends up taking her to this part of town where there's basically nobody. And he tries to stab her. Actually, he does stab her with a screwdriver. He stabs her 15 times. But this girl, Denise Williams, she grabbed that bottle, hit him over the head with the glass bottle, and started stabbing his face and stabbing his arms and just trying to get away. So she jumps out of the car. He jumps after her. They start wrestling again. And this time, there's a man down the street that hears this commotion, and he approaches, and Stefani tries to go after him, but decides he can't. So he gets in his car and he drives away. They call the police. The police come out, and by this time, the police had already figured out that it was Paul Stefani. Because when he picked up his fourth victim, he picked her up from a bar, and he had sat there and talked to her while they ate or while they drank, and she ended up going home with them. But before she left, she told the bartender, "I hope this guy's really a nice guy, because I'm going home with him." And for some odd reason that she said that, the bartender took notice. So when police brought in some pictures of known felons in the area, the bartender actually picked out his picture. So they had started following Stefani as of that time, but he was already killing or trying to kill Denise Williams. By the time they so Denise Williams escapes and goes to the hospital. They call the police, they call the fire department, or they call the ambulance, they call the police. She goes to the hospital, and they're stitching her up, and the detectives get there, and they start questioning her, and they show her a picture of Paul Stefani. Now, they show her the picture because this guy, Paul Stefani, not a very bright guy, calls 911 and starts to weep on the phone. Except he's not calling about who he stabbed. He's calling 911 for help because she did a job on him. He was bleeding to the point where he couldn't stop it. I tell you what, guys, this girl at the time is amazing. I know she got hurt, but she stopped this killer from killing anybody else. So he calls 911. He's crying. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and play it for you. Listen to this.
I need an ambulance.
Where?
1505 Westminster.
1505
Yes.
Westminster. What's the problem?
I'm all cut up. I got beat up.
What's your apartment number?
208. I'm bleeding.
208. Where are you bleeding from?
From my arm, my face, my head.
So after that, the police get a call saying that there's a woman that got stabbed. They go to the hospital. She starts giving the description of who she saw. They bring in pictures, and she points out Paul Stefani. Well, then they end up getting a call from dispatch saying, "Hey, this guy just called us. He's at this location." he wants an ambulance. So they go, they pick him up, they treat his wounds, and they arrest him. While he's there in jail, he confesses the 3 murders that the police knew about. The girl that he drowned, this was going to last 15 years before they knew it was him, because he never called 911. Now, for me, I have to wonder why. Because after all the other ones, he called 911. But he didn't because of a drowning. I'm thinking maybe the red, like the blood, but maybe because he stabbed them and they were red with blood, he felt like he needed forgiveness. And so he would call the police department to ask for forgiveness, like you heard on the tapes earlier. Maybe with this one, and this is just a long shot coming from me, maybe he thought he was baptizing her into death, I guess, because he drowned her. Supposedly they were both in the tub, naked. So, 15 years, like I said, go by, and he brings up that death. So, all in all, he ended up killing 4 women and injuring 2. Now, I forgot, the first woman that he beat over the head, she actually lived, because he called 911 and they got to her in time. What is the point of calling to ask for forgiveness? Now, people have been saying that he was faking the whole thing and the calls were fake. But here's the problem I have with that. If you listen to the call when he calls 911 for help, you can hear the same kind of voice he was calling when he was asking for forgiveness after he murdered somebody. We're talking, he was really hurt. And he was freaking out, and he was talking in his voice. So, I don't think he was faking. Because if I was going to fake, I would honestly fake differently and try to be different than what I would usually cry like, you know? Now, could this red surge have been one of those things that a demon might have had inside of him? He never calls it a red surge, but he does say that this demon or this voice in his head would tell him, you have to kill her. If you start hearing voices in your head telling you to kill people, would you do it? Paul started this whole thing on New Year's Eve alone. Think about that. No family, no friends, no girlfriend, no wife. He was utterly alone. And this voice came to him and told him he needed to kill that girl. He even says, why are you killing her? You want friends. And this is the problem I have. He says, and if you hear him correctly, he makes himself out to be like the third person. He says, you like friends. You want to make friends. I think that's weird. Because could it be multiple personality disorder? Or could it be the demon inside? Thanks for listening, guys. Have a good one. See y'all next week. Don't forget to subscribe to the Demon Inside podcast on any podcast platform. A new episode of the Demon Inside will be released every week. Let us know what you think of the episode on all our social media platforms. If you have any questions or comments, go to the Demon Inside Podcast at gmail.com or click on the link down below. We would love to hear from you. And to become a Demon Insider, go to our website, thedemoninsidepodcast.com. We thank you for listening and hope you will join us next week for a new Demon Inside Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please tell your friends. I am John Venom, and I'll see you next time. If I don't get possessed. The Demon Inside was written and created by James Porter. It is a production of Venomous Entertainment. Background music is by Lucas King. And the title song Demon Inside was produced by Rice Pulver, composer lyricist Peter Shelley, and performed by Conjure One.